Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon edition on WBS TV where quality matters. I am Mildred Tuhaise. In the news just coming in, President Yoweri Museveni has appointed Supreme Court Justice Bart Katurebe as the new Chief Justice, ending close to 2 years without a substantive head of the judiciary, and the announcement also ends the reign of Constitutional Court Justice Stephen Kavuma as the acting Chief Justice, as he will now deputize Katurebe as the substantive Deputy Chief Justice. The appointments are subject to parliamentary approval, however. Now, the 64-year-old Katurebe had earlier been nominated by the Judicial Service Commission for appointment to the same slot, but the President had opted for retirement due Benjamin Odoki on the advice of the Attorney General Peter Nyombi. Katurebe is a Justice of the Supreme Court and is one of the judicial officers who enjoy a high reputation on the bench. He will be deputized by the acting Chief Justice Stephen Kavuma, who has been acting in the office since the retirement of Benjamin Odoki. The President had earlier attempted to reappoint retirement due Odoki, but he was challenged with the Supreme Court declaring the matter unconstitutional, and the duo will have to be vetted by the Appointments Committee of Parliament before they can assume office. Police has issued strong warnings to Makerere University students in the wake of the university's guild campaigns to refrain themselves from making chaos. Police spokesperson Fred Ananga says that police is considering deploying heavily at Makerere University to counter any likely lawlessness that may occur.
We know that some of these guild campaigns are marred by violence, and of course, we have a very competent structure at Makerere University, and we expect that if the campaigns are associated with violence, then basically the police will ensure that they arrest culprits. Information indicates that Ndeje in Nyimbwa sub-county of Luwero has a section of students who were issuing anonymous letters to the university administration demanding to be availed with a financial statement indicating the numerous fee structures imposed on them. However, we have beefed up security at Ndeje University to avoid a repeat of what happened last year.
Former Forum for Democratic Change President, retired Dr. Kanu Kizza Besigye, says the most critical thing for the country is a credible election, and those who aspire to have any elective posts should first focus on having the necessary reforms that deliver credible elections. Our reporter Mark Aarons spoke to Dr. Besigye and now reports.
The former Forum for Democratic Change President, retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, says the citizenry is aware of the fraudulent intentions by government agencies to run the 2016 scam election through passing of inappropriate bills. Dr. Besigye is reacting to the recent passing of the Registration of Persons Bill by Parliament, calling it putting the cart ahead of the horse.
We should aspire to be candidates in a credible election. As it is, there is no credible election. So let's all focus our effort, our resources on ensuring that there is a credible election. Then we can talk about who the candidates of that elections could be.
He said the registration of the Persons Bill was a deliberate abuse of the powers of Ugandans by the government to corrupt the National Register. Besigye also attacked Parliament for being used fraudulently to pass such bills and losing the confidence of the people whose delegated powers they serve.
There is no basis for having hope in a Parliament that is itself a result of the fraudulent elections because we don't have a Parliament that came out of free elections that is truly representative of people.
When asked on the seeming coalition with the former Premier Amama Mbabazi Dr. Besigye revealed that he could be able to work with anyone wanting better a change for this country, but insists Mbabazi has not come on his intentions, making him difficult to deal with.
Whoever wants the kinds of changes that we have been fighting for is an ally. So if Mbabazi comes along to fight, we will treat him as an ally.
Dr. Besigye also threw a comment on what he called the state framing of individuals who express interest in contesting for presidency.
There is no way anybody would not suspect that what is going on with Dr. Kiinji is part of the regular pattern that we see, regardless of what they may, the truth is, and nobody knows the truth.
Police has allegedly threatened to have Dr. Aggrey Kiinji arrested in connections with the rebel-allied Democratic Forces and the recent murders in Mayuge district. Last year, the opposition and the civil society organizations, through consultations with the electorate countrywide, proposed a number of electoral reforms that are before Parliament, despite the short time ahead of the 2016 general elections. Aransmark, WBS Television.
You're still watching the afternoon edition. We take a break. When we return, international news will be coming up.
This is Dodge. This is really Dodge. Trying to. No way. Forget it. This is totally. Let's do it.
Welcome back. It's still the afternoon edition. Let's take a look at what's happening elsewhere in the world. And South Sudanese President Salva Kiir and rebel commander Riek Machar have signed a deal that could pave the way for a power sharing. Diplomatic sources indicate the two are edging closer to an end of an 18-month conflict that has ravaged the world's newest country. I have more in this report.
This much anticipated comprehensive peace deal are very slim. The leaders seem to be disagreeing on everything. They've brought in new items to the existing agenda. Now Salva Kiir, the president, and the rebel leader Riek Machar have been holding direct talks since Tuesday. They're not agreeing on the power sharing agreement, on the power sharing deal that is on the table. This power sharing deal says Riek Machar to be first vice president, of course Salva Kiir as president, and then a second vice president. Now the rebel side says that Riek Machar, the first vice president, has to share some responsibilities with the president and vet some of his decisions. The president wants the first vice president and the second vice president to have equal powers. They also don't agree on security arrangements. How will the two armies be reintegrated? Will they be reintegrated? Will they they stay separate? What power arrangements will there be here in Juba? And what security detail, who will provide the security detail to Riek Machar when he returns? They also talked at length about federalism. How will, when and how will this be implemented? How autonomous will the federal states be? So a lot of things still up in the air. They're not disagreeing on much, still a lot of mistrust. Will this deal be signed? Joining me to discuss this is Low Duke, who has been following developments in South Sudan for a very long time.
As it stands now, chances that a peace agreement will be signed are very slim, but I'm still optimistic that peace agreement can be reached by midnight today.
And if the deal is not reached, what are the implications to this country?
Well, if a deal is not reached, it's clear that the citizens of South Sudan are fed up of the war, and the leaders should heed to their call and make peace happen by all means, meaning that they should remain in Addis and ask the South Sudanese and the parties to give them the amount of time they need to reach an agreement. We do not want them to come back to Juba or go back to their fighting bases, throwing out excuses, because enough is enough. Well, I don't think it's too much pressure. IGAD has been threatening the parties for quite some time now, but we haven't seen any action translate from those punitive measures that IGAD has been promising. Putting in place this sanction regime by the Security Council, I think, is a very important step in the right direction, because now, if the parties continue to play the same blame game, like so-and-so is responsible, this side is responsible, which we all know will not translate into peace, this sanction regime has to be activated so that the parties will realize how serious.
On a sad note, the U.S. ambassador to South Korea has been attacked by a knife-wielding man shouting anti-war slogans during a public event at an arts center in Seoul. The ambassador, Mark Lippert, was assaulted during a breakfast conference on Thursday as he was preparing to give a lecture about prospects for peace on the divided Korean peninsula. The UN ambassador now says Lippert is in stable condition after surgery at Seoul Hospital.
This was the US ambassador seconds after he was attacked. Bleeding from a cheek wound, the shock on his face is clear to see. Mark Lippert was attending a routine breakfast conference in Seoul. As he was leaving the event, a man rushed forward. He shouted, "No drills for war," referencing current US-South Korean military exercises, and South and North Korea should be reunified. He was quickly overpowered and pushed from the scene. Police would only identify him as a man called Kim. The ambassador was taken to a local hospital. His condition is described as not life-threatening. The US and South Korea are currently carrying out extensive military operations which will continue until next month. They are described as defensive in nature, but they've been branded unprecedentedly provocative in nature by the North Koreans. The US bases more than 28,000 troops in South Korea along the world's most fortified border. It's seen as a deterrent against North Korea, but some in the South also see them as a barrier to a unified Korea. Mark Lippert is a popular figure. His wife gave birth in Seoul and he gave his new son a Korean middle name. He's received a call from US President Barack Obama, who wished him a speedy recovery. But this attack will almost certainly lead to a review of security for him, his family and all US diplomats in South Korea.
Still elsewhere in the world, Libya's state-run National Oil Corporation has declared itself inoperative at 11 oil fields after a series of attacks by rebels purportedly linked to the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant ISIL group. And now they threaten to close all the fields and ports if the country's security situation does not improve. The attack on the oil field prompted a counter-attack by government forces that included airstrikes, just as it is in the details below.
An attack on Libya's Sarir oil facility last month has left it inoperable. It's one of several oil fields that have been targeted in recent weeks, most of them by fighters linked to the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. They destroyed equipment at Al Dahra oil field on Wednesday. On Monday, Bahi oil field and a pipeline carrying crude to the Sidra port came under attack. And these facilities were also hit last month. At least 14 people were killed at the Mabruk oil field. In a country plagued by war in recent years, Libya's oil industry is a prime target. Production has fallen from 1.6 million barrels a day before the revolution that overthrew Gaddafi to less than 300,000 barrels a day. There have been so many attacks in recent days that Libya's National Oil Corporation says it won't be fulfilling its contracts. It says it might close all of Libya's fields and ports if the security situation doesn't improve soon. Libya's two rival governments are still in a power struggle. A delegation from one of them, the court-installed Tripoli government, was at this airport when it was targeted in an airstrike.
We are here at Mitiga Airport. As we were going to Rabat for the National Dialogue meeting, unknown warplanes carried out airstrikes, and as you can see behind me, there are plumes of smoke. This is yet another attempt to prevent us from going to the meetings and to sabotage the efforts of the Libyan government.
The airport was hit by forces loyal to the internationally recognized Tobruk government. Talks are resuming in Morocco, but expectations of a solution are low.
We have asked for dialogue since the beginning. Dialogue based on fixed foundations. Recognizing the legitimacy of the parliament is a red line, and that is irreversible. We can't go back to the beginning of the outdated national conference.
In the meantime, the country's oil wealth is going up in smoke.
And finally, winding up the international scene, the United States and Iranian foreign ministers have wrapped up 3 days of talks over Iran's nuclear program, ignoring a passionate plea by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to ditch their negotiations. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry said that he and the Iranian counterpart Mohammad Javad Zarif made some progress during their talks in the Swiss lakeside town of Montreux and would resume them on March 15th. Kerry aides said many obstacles remain before a late March deadline for an outline accord between Iran and 6 world powers. Kerry said politics and external factors would not distract them from the talks, which aim to constrain Iran with intrusive UN access and verification of its nuclear activity and lengthen the breakout time needed for it to build any nuclear weapon. Thank you very much for watching the afternoon edition. We finally come to an end of this edition. I'm Mildred Tohaisa. Sports will be coming your way with Web Daniel Sebakije. Good afternoon.
We have to do something. Game's over.
Aha! Step on it!